Rafael Nadal broke his silence with uncharacteristic bluntness the moment whispers began surfacing from Roger Federer's inner circle. Rumors suggested that the rise of Alex Eala was casting a shadow over Federer's hand-picked successor and threatening a carefully curated legacy. The way the King of Clay stepped into the fray caught everyone off guard. Yet it was vintage Nadal. When the stakes were highest, he appeared. He stood his ground. This is the story they would rather keep hidden, a rivalry that began long before the players themselves grasped its true weight. For more than 20 years, the titanic duo of Rafael Nadal and Roger Federer split the tennis world right down the middle. The sport was fundamentally reshaped by the perpetual clash of two distinct philosophies, two contrasting personalities, and two separate eras on one court. On one side stood Federer, the Swiss maestro who embodied poetic grace and effortless beauty. On the other was Nadal, the powerhouse from Mallorca. Nadal was a man who turned struggle into a masterpiece and raw force into high art. Across 40 legendary battles, Nadal held a 24-16 edge. Still, the cold statistics never captured the soul of their relationship. They shared a bond that went far deeper than a simple tally of wins and losses. Only those who have reached the absolute summit can truly appreciate the profound mutual respect that anchored their connection. As Federer retired in 2022 and Nadal followed in 2024, the tennis community braced for the inevitable question of who would lead next. Federer found his answer in João Fonseca, the 18-year-old Brazilian phenom who signed with the sportswear brand Federer co-owns. This was more than a business deal. Federer actively mentored Fonseca, championing him as the face of a new era he was building from behind the scenes. Fonseca proved his mettle by capturing the United States Open Junior title in 2023 and making a massive splash at the 2025 Australian Open. After stunning Andrei Rublev to reach the second round, Fonseca became a household name. Meanwhile, Nadal's countermove had been years in the making. Since the age of 13, Alex Eala had been honing her craft under the watchful eye of the experts at the Rafael Nadal Academy. The left-handed prodigy from Quezon City arrived in Mallorca as a young girl, fueled by an inexplicable drive that matched her immense natural talent. Nadal personally witnessed her evolution. He celebrated her milestones with the genuine pride of a mentor who saw a reflection of his own spirit in her. He watched her climb the rankings with intent. Here were two chosen successors and two legends, set on a path that would eventually collide. The world was unprepared for what came next. These parallel stories were destined to intersect in a way no one could have predicted. What happens when one protégé ascends so rapidly that the other starts to feel like a footnote? That is exactly the tension that began to surface. By the year 2025, the situation grew remarkably complex as a long-simmering silence finally found a public voice. To grasp the magnitude of the ensuing firestorm, you must first understand just how meteoric Alex Eala's rise to the top truly was. This was not a gradual climb through the professional ranks. It was a full-scale explosion that rocked the foundations of the Women's Tennis Association. In a single landmark season, she became the first Filipina to capture a singles title, break into the top 100, and reach a 1,000-level semifinal. By the conclusion of 2025, she had secured a career-best ranking of number 50 in the world. Yet, the numbers are only half the story. Statistics cannot describe the electricity of the crowds. During the Miami Open in March 2025, Eala took down giants to reach the semifinals. She dominated the courts in Miami, toppling stars like Madison Keys before eventually falling to world-class competitor Jessica Pegula. Eala entered the tournament as a qualifier and proceeded to defeat a former world number 1 and a reigning Australian Open champion. The entire Filipino community in Miami, along with millions watching from across the 7,000 islands of her archipelago, was swept up in a frenzy. The sheer intensity of her victory sent shockwaves through the Filipino community in Miami and through millions watching from an archipelago of 7,000 islands. The drama reached its peak at the United States Open. During a third set defined by raw grit, Eala refused to buckle even after falling behind 15-0. She clawed her way back to reach 45, all in a stunning display of resilience. Then, a controversial moment occurred as her racket neared the net. Chair umpire Kader Nooney reviewed the video evidence and ultimately ruled in favor of Eala. Her opponent, Clara Towson, was absolutely livid as the court erupted. The stadium exploded in a mix of cheers and confusion. Amidst the chaos, a 20-year-old Filipina secured her first Grand Slam main draw win and collapsed in shock. A veteran tennis official from Dubai, who had seen legends like Federer, Djokovic, and Nadal, remarked that this atmosphere was unlike anything he had ever witnessed. Ticket sales for the 2026 Dubai Tennis Championships skyrocketed by 48%, a surge driven almost entirely by the presence of Eala. During an appearance on the Nothing Major podcast, former professional Steve Johnson was asked if Eala had become the premier attraction in women's tennis. He answered without a moment of hesitation. Meanwhile, where was Fonseca? He was putting in the hard work, grinding through matches and doing everything right. Yet the spotlight, that blinding and relentless glare of global attention, seemed to follow Eala wherever she stepped. This growing disparity began to spark whispers in the inner sanctums of the tennis world that were never meant for public ears. Pay close attention now, because this is where the storyline shifts into uncharted and much more volatile territory. In late 2025, the Swiss icon sat for a comprehensive interview ahead of his 2026 induction into the Hall of Fame. The conversation was initially warm and full of nostalgia, until the interviewer turned the focus toward the rising stars of the next generation. Federer beamed when the topic of Fonseca arose. However, the mood shifted the moment Eala's name was mentioned in the room. Federer did not raise his voice or launch into a bitter tirade. His delivery was far more measured and subtle than that. In many ways, his words carried more weight because they were delivered with such clinical and calculated precision. He offered a tactful but unmistakable suggestion that other gifted youngsters were being overlooked due to the suffocating media obsession with Eala. He pointed to a perceived imbalance in coverage, implying that equally talented players like Fonseca were being overshadowed by a different kind of force. He characterized her meteoric rise as a phenomenon fueled by nationalism rather than being based purely on tennis merit. The digital world did not pause for context or nuance. The internet, as always, reacted with lightning speed and absolute ferocity. The phrase nationalism over merit was clipped and shared 10 million times across every major social platform within a matter of hours. Filipino tennis fans, arguably the most passionate and digitally organized fan base on the planet, immediately mobilized for a counteroffensive. Comment sections across the globe transformed into digital war zones. A name that once commanded universal reverence was suddenly under fire. Federer's reputation was being questioned for the first time in years. One central question began to echo through every corner of the sport. Would anyone within the elite tennis circle have the courage to speak up? Would anyone stand in her corner and defend her? On November 19, 2025, Rafael Nadal stepped onto a tennis court and picked up a racket for the first time since retiring. The timing was significant, marking exactly 1 year since his final professional appearance during the Davis Cup Finals. His first practice partner upon his return to the court at the Rafa Nadal Academy was none other than world number 50, Alex Eala. This was no mere coincidence. Nadal is a man of deliberate action who rarely, if ever, makes a move without a specific purpose. Nadal is a man of deliberate action, and this specific moment carried a heavy symbolic weight that resonated far beyond the court. He posted a photo of the session with a caption stating that it felt incredible to be back on the court after a full year. He explicitly noted that practicing with Alex Eala was a fantastic experience and joked that he would need to be more resilient next time. Eala responded with a simple yet powerful message, telling him that it seemed as though he had never left the game. On that afternoon in Mallorca, they were doing much more than just hitting tennis balls across a net. They were sending a message. In a professional landscape where legends often choose neutrality to protect their personal brands, Nadal chose a different and bolder path. He stood openly and unapologetically alongside her, making it clear exactly where his loyalties and his respect remained. The 20-year-old Filipina had been a student of his philosophy since her childhood, carrying his fighting spirit to global stages. When reporters eventually pressed him on Federer's comments regarding media imbalances and young stars, Nadal did not flinch or look away. He selected his words with the same grueling precision and strategic intent that he uses to choose his championship-winning tennis strokes. He argued that any athlete capable of drawing new spectators to the sport should be celebrated rather than scrutinized with suspicion. To Nadal, the raw passion of a new fan base is not a distraction from the game, but rather its very lifeline. He emphasized that he had watched Eala work for years, and that the size of her following should never be confused with a lack of merit. He acknowledged that his personal bond with Roger Federer remained excellent, and that they still spoke on a daily basis. However, he made it abundantly clear that this was a fundamental issue he was not willing to simply overlook or ignore. He refused to stay silent when it involved a player he had mentored and believed in long before the rest of the world knew her name. When a man like Rafael Nadal, who generally avoids unnecessary controversy, plants his flag so firmly, you know the stakes are real. The entire tennis establishment felt the gravity of his stance, yet it forced a much more difficult conversation to the surface. It leads us to the uncomfortable question of whether Federer's observation held even a small grain of objective truth. Fonseca is undoubtedly a special talent, possessing technical skills and a level of mental maturity that are rare for his age. It is also true that Eala's status as a cultural icon has generated a level of media noise that sometimes outpaces her statistical results. Following her success in Miami, a few early tournament exits triggered a wave of harsh criticism from both new and casual observers. The public discourse surrounding her career often swings wildly between blind adoration and exaggerated, unfair negativity. Eala herself was incredibly blunt after a tough loss to Coco Gauff in Dubai, where she fell 0-6, 2-6. She did not offer excuses, candidly admitting that she still had a significant gap to close to reach the elite level of the women's game. Such level-headed honesty is an exceptional quality for an athlete who is still so early in her professional journey. She has proven time and again that she does not require a shield against reality because she is prepared to face it head-on. There is, however, a vital distinction between providing a constructive critique and attempting to erase a player's genuine achievements. Eala navigated the surrounding controversy with the same characteristic clarity and grace that she displays on the court. She spoke about the importance of gratitude, rooted in her understanding of the world outside the bright lights of professional sports. "I always strive to show my appreciation," she shared, noting that coming from the Philippines meant witnessing profound poverty and severe hardship firsthand. Even if those specific struggles were not her own personal burden, she remained deeply grateful for her opportunities and the magnitude of what she had achieved. When you tune out the surrounding static, the facts remain undeniable. She began the year 2025 sitting at world number 138. You need to step away from the social media frenzy for a moment and ignore the digital bickering, the sensationalist headlines, and the out-of-context quotes. The true gravity of this narrative reaches far beyond a simple disagreement between two of the greatest legends to ever step onto a tennis court. We are witnessing the evolution of tennis itself as a sport once dominated by a small circle of Western icons finally opens its doors to the world. We are seeing the arrival of fresh faces, a new generation of devoted admirers, and the untapped potential of rapidly emerging global markets. Furthermore, these new fans are far from passive observers. They are highly organized, incredibly vocal, and emotionally invested in the success of their stars. The atmosphere during Eala's matches has created a completely different mood than anything the traditional tennis world has ever experienced before. An experienced official in Dubai, who has watched the greatest players in history for decades, described this energy as uniquely vibrant and intensely pressing. Eala has successfully tapped into a massive well of unrealized potential within international markets that the sport has long overlooked or ignored. These regions simply needed a champion to rally behind. And Alex has filled that void with a level of skill and determination that demands attention. To truly understand the electricity she brings to the game, you simply have to witness her performance and the crowd's reaction on the court for yourself. This is the fundamental tension that currently sits at the very heart of the professional tennis circuit and its future direction. On one side are the legacy institutions and the old guard, who have spent decades controlling the meticulously crafted hierarchies of funding and attention. They are now colliding with a powerful and organic cultural force for which they were never truly prepared to handle or even acknowledge. That power has a name and a devastating backhand that took down 3 Grand Slam champions in a single run to reach world number 31. Nadal's vocal support for Eala is much more than a friendly exchange between a legendary mentor and his talented young student from the academy. It serves as a definitive statement regarding the kind of inclusive and global sport that tennis eventually aspires to become in the modern era. He is challenging the gatekeepers who seem uncomfortable when a new star is too beloved or a new audience becomes too loud for their liking. You simply cannot invite the entire world to watch the game and then complain when they actually show up and make their voices heard. I want to personally thank Alex for bringing such a diverse and passionate new demographic to our sport. Another star recently shared with the media. Following her hard-fought victory in Dubai, Coco Gauff addressed the crowd and made sure to give credit where it was due regarding Eala's impact. "I am incredibly grateful for the energy she brings to the tour," Gauff noted, stating that in her opinion, the phenomenon is absolutely fantastic. Even after winning the match, Gauff took the time to acknowledge the immense gift that Eala was giving to the entire global tennis community. Jessica Pegula also joined the chorus of praise, describing the young Filipina as the quintessential role model for the next generation of professional players. The way she consistently packs stadiums and the way her entire country stands behind her is something truly extraordinary and special to witness. Pegula went on to emphasize that Eala handles the immense pressure of global stardom with incredible poise and a level of maturity beyond her years. For the first time in 12 months, Rafael Nadal returned to the arena, gripped his racket, and symbolically passed the torch to Alex Eala. Nadal once famously stated that he never concerned himself with breaking records, focusing instead on winning the very next point at hand. He did not pass that focus to Fonseca or any other rising star, but specifically to the 20-year-old Filipina, who took his academy's name and gave it a global, transformative new meaning. That sentiment captures the essence of this moment perfectly. This is not merely a narrative of blame or a simple conflict between Fonseca and Eala, or even between Federer and Nadal. It is about a sport standing at a critical crossroads, forced to decide whether to embrace its evolving future or cling to a past defined by nostalgia and rigid tradition. Alex Eala did not simply inherit her massive following. She earned it one hard-fought victory at a time. The fact that 2 of the greatest legends ever are now debating her impact proves she is a force of nature. She has become too significant for the establishment to ignore. Is Alex Eala now the most crucial player in tennis? While not yet the greatest, her importance to the sport's development is undeniable. We want to hear your thoughts on this historic shift. Does Nadal have the right to stand his ground for Eala? Or did Federer go too far? Please subscribe and join the conversation in the comments.